old camcorders. They're a thing that's been resurging in popularity due to the, I guess, look that you can get out of these, and I see people using these all the time on YouTube. When people upload old camcorder footage to the internet, many people make the same mistakes that keep them from getting the best quality out of these. And in this video, I'm going to show you how people can get it wrong, and I will also get into how I process my old camcorder footage for the best quality possible. So, deinterlacing. That is a thing that many people get wrong, but to really show you, I'm going to switch to this camera. Now the first thing that people can get wrong is that they don't deinterlace the footage entirely. This can give your video this very weird sort of like digital lines effect. You may or may not have seen this effect before, and this is called interlacing. It happens because one row of pixels are captured a 60th or 50th of a second after the other depending on where you live, which is why movement looks super weird. These two rows of pixels are called fields, named as even and odd respectively. The even field would have row 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on, while the odd field would have row 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. Now, deinterlacing the videos would take the odd or even row of pixels and make that its own frame, and take the other row of pixels and make that its own frame, essentially creating two 240p frames out of one 480i frame. Therefore, the resulting video ends up being in 60 frames per second. What is interesting is pausing the video with this type of deinterlacing can make it seem lower resolution, because the video only shows one field at a time. Another way you can easily get deinterlacing wrong is when your final video is in 30 frames per second. If it's in 30 frames per second, you'd be dropping one of the fields, resulting in a lower resolution 240p video. Now another thing that people get very wrong while uploading old camcorder footage to YouTube is uploading it in the native 480p resolution. Now you may be tempted to upload the footage in the native 480p resolution, but what can happen is YouTube will add more compression artifacts to the video, making it look terrible. What I do instead is, just to be safe, I like to render the finished file in not 480p 60, but instead in full 1080p 60 or even 1440p resolution. That way, when you upload them to YouTube, the compression won't hit the video as hard as if you just uploaded it in 480p, resulting in a far better viewing experience. What is also very important to get right with this old camcorder footage is the aspect ratio. Now, this camcorder and this camcorder in particular records in the NTSC DV format, which is 720 pixels horizontally and 480 pixels vertically. Now, as you can see, this is a 16:9 video, but if you try fitting a 720x480 video in a 16:9 timeline, you'll notice that it wouldn't fit because the pixel aspect ratio is actually different with NTSC DV video files. So you would need to conform your footage to the NTSC DV format. Or if you don't know how to do that, just simply stretch the video horizontally until it looks correct. So now I'm going to go into how I process this old camcorder footage, and I'm going to jump over the computer and show you how to do that. So now you can see I'm at the computer. You can see these are the files that comes directly out of the camcorder, and this is how I process them. So I'm going to jump into Handbrake. Now because, as I've said before, the footage that comes from the camcorder are .mod files, I need to convert these files to a file format that Davinci Resolve will actually support. So I'm going to drop it into Handbrake. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go to dimensions, and I'm going to set this to custom and make sure that this is set to 720x480. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to filters, turn off interlace detection, and also turn off the interlace. I'm going to do those two things in Davinci Resolve because doing it in Davinci Resolve introduces a lot more options, and it's just better quality deinterlacing in general. And then I'm going to go to video and then make sure the quality is set to a pretty high one. I think I might just set it to 2. It's pretty high. And then what I'll do is I'm just going to save it as a new preset, and I'm just going to call it camcorder preset. And then you'd set your destination, but it already looks good, so I'm just going to start encoding. Now that the video has been rendered, I'm going to go right into Davinci Resolve. I'm just going to drag it in. And first what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my Resolve settings and then just make sure that the timeline frame rate is set to 60 frames per second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this clip, hit clip attributes, and then make sure the pixel aspect ratio is not set to square, but it's set to NTSC DV 16:9. And you can see down here is this deinterlacing option. And what you can do is set the field dominance, and I'm going to set it to upper field because that's what the camera does. You can see when I drag it down into the 60 FPS timeline, you can see that this video is verifiably in 60 FPS. Now there are some ways to make the deinterlacing quality look way better. What I like to do is I go into settings, image scaling, and then where it says deinterlace quality, I set it to high. With the pro version of Davinci Resolve, it takes up a lot more system resources, but there's also the Davinci neural engine. I just prefer leaving it on high instead. So yeah, that is how I deinterlace my clips. Alright, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you loved it, please subscribe. I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Bye!